Welcome back to my channel, where we use neuroscience to help women entrepreneurs build profitable businesses without the burnout. I'm Tanya Adams. I'm a neuroscience coach, speaker, and founder of the Freedom Collective. And today I'm going to talk to you about something I hear almost every day from my clients and from the women in our Freedom Collective. I know I have to show up, but I am exhausted. Whether that comes from content fatigue or being on social media too much or simply having to show up all the time in networking meetings, the grind is real. And here's the thing, you're not alone. A recent study in 2024 showed that 1 in 3 entrepreneurs give up their businesses and networking and being visible because of burnout. And I want to change that with you today. So why is it that visibility feels so draining? The truth of the matter is that it's not laziness, it's not you, it's biology. The thing with being visible is that anytime we're being visible, whether it's online or offline, making reels or doing content like this, or being in a room with other people sharing what we do, the brain perceives visibility as threatening because it triggers that part of ourselves that registers a possibility of rejection, a possibility of shame, a possibility of judgment. In other words, it's triggering the amygdala all the time. And this is our brain's threat response. And what happens when our brain goes into threat response is that we either freeze or we completely just opt out. Or we may plow through and push through, and this just in itself leads to even more burnout. Because the fact is that when we burn out, we don't just burn out once, we burn out on this consistent loop of overriding our own nervous system and our own natural state of energy. Visibility isn't the problem. The problem is being visible or trying and attempting to be visible with a dysregulated nervous system and not working with your brain in order to help you achieve what you want to achieve. So how do you stay visible without burning out? Particularly if you're introverted like I am, it's a really big deal to be in person with people or even online. And particularly, I find a lot of women that I work with really have a big battle with having their face out on social media or on different platforms. So how do you do this while maintaining authenticity, not exhausting yourself, not burning out, and still coming across with a good, strong message and managing to have exactly the impact that you want to have? Well, the most important thing is to show up regulated. And I'm going to talk to you about 3 steps that you can use in order to regulate yourself so that when you do show up, you're working with your brain and not against your brain, and you're working in your own natural energy flow all of the time. So for the 3-part strategy, the first part is to get ready for visibility. Now, many people mistake this as having a content plan or a content calendar, and honestly, that's step 1. And if you've got a great VA or if you know how to prompt ChatGPT, you can put up a content plan in no time. However, the question is, are you energetically ready to do that, to present that content? And the first step to all of this is to get yourself ready. Even before performing this video, before recording this video, I had to sit and do some readiness work. And what does that look like? In practice, it's very, very simple. The most simple thing you can do is breath work. Breath work, music, singing. I had music going on in the background, all to help me stabilize my energy before showing up on this particular video with you guys. And it's a part of a process before going visible, very much like warming up, I guess, for if you're going to go to gym or if you're going for a run, you want to warm up and get yourself into that space. Now, a lot of people misunderstand and think, well, I can just launch into doing something in the visibility world. Well, it's not that simple. You also need to warm up. And so even just 30 to 60 seconds of deep breathing, box breathing perhaps, singing at the top of your voice is going to stimulate that vagus nerve, which communicates back to the amygdala that this is a safe place to be in, and it down regulates that flight, fight, or freeze mechanism that the amygdala wants to trigger all the time. Then part 2, and this is something I do because I speak a lot online, part 2 is to shift your mindset from performance to service. Anytime that you are being visible on your social media or in person, It's important to understand, what are you doing that for? Why is it that you're putting yourself out there in the first place? Yes, you want your business to grow. Yes, that's what it's about. Though underlying all of it, you started your business to help people. No business that I'm aware of has not had a seed somewhere that has come from wanting to make something easier or provide a product for somebody that's going to improve things in some way. So your very business is at its heart about service. And when you choose to view visibility as service rather than performance, it again down regulates the amygdala action, because it puts you into the medial prefrontal cortex, which is the part of our brain that deals with courage and with service and with community thinking. And so spend some time writing out, before you decide to record whatever you're recording, whether it's a reel or a podcast, or before you're going out to a networking meeting, spend some time writing out why. Why is this important? How am I being of service? Sometimes I'll ask myself, who needs to hear this message today? What is this message? And what I'm doing is I'm thinking about the person who's going to watch my reel or watch my YouTube video. And I'm getting into what they need, what they most need, because anything that I'm presenting, it's designed to help somebody with something. So when you step into service and think about, who is my client on the end of this video, on the end of this reel, in that networking room, who I want to help at the end of the day, and keep them in mind and think about how they will benefit, how their lives will be improved. Again, what starts to happen is your system regulates, and then you have the ability to come across as very much more authentic, and also you're no longer draining your own energy, because you're working with your energy in the right part of your brain. And then the third part is choose your timing. I know, for example, that there's certain times of the day where I am better than others. And if I miss that window, my energy is going to be very low. My creative energy for designing a reel, or even for mustering up the amount of energy to go into a networking meeting. For example, my preference is to do networking meetings earlier in the morning. I prefer coffee or breakfast meetings, because by the end of the evening, my energy is really low and I'm not as effective. And therefore, I'm not able to serve the people that I'm meeting in that room in the same way. The same is true for recording my YouTube videos or making reels. Even if I'm not making a headshot reel, if I'm making a content reel, my creativity dips at a certain point in the day. And so it's important to do two things with your timing. One is to learn to understand what your natural energy rhythm is. And everybody's is slightly different, though if you pay attention to yourself, you'll start to learn where your energy and in particular, your creative energy, or if you're going to be in person, your social energy is at its highest. And then when you have identified that, diary block or time block certain sections. So if I'm going to block off networking, it's going to be in the morning, say between 9 and 10:30. That's my 90-minute block where I have enough energy to network. And I also give myself space to come back home and to re-energize myself. Sometimes if it's been a very, very busy networking meeting, I even will actually just take a nap to re-energize myself for the next stage of my workday. So it's important to diary block that as a commitment. If it's making reels, then put that in your diary. Now, here's what I see goes wrong, is that some part of us decides that, well, this is movable. And here's the reality, it's not movable. Because if you move that slot, that creative slot, into somewhere where your creative energy is low, you're likely to not actually even do it. Either you'll do it poorly, or it'll feel like a slog, or you'll push through and burn yourself out. And then you won't be happy with the results and you won't have served, which is the important part. So when you've put this in your diary, there are going to be demands on your time. People are going to come and say, well, the only time I have an appointment happens to be the very time you have scheduled to design your reels. And the answer is no. I have a set rhythm for recording these YouTube videos, and I just tell people my diary is blocked. They don't have to know what it's blocked for. Though if I step out of that rhythm, it literally will throw out my whole week. And so this is an important part of boundary setting when you are thinking about being visible, because it's around working with your creative and your social energy on one level, and then with your boundaries around other people and other people's demands on your time. if you want to go deeper with this is the exact work that we do in the Freedom Collective. And the women that work with me in the Freedom Collective are experiencing huge amounts of freedom, renewed energy, and creativity. So the link for this will be down in the description below. And if you want to know more about how the work works in the Freedom Collective, there's a free masterclass happening next week, Thursday, called the Freedom Success Formula, where I explain how this all packs together and why the Freedom Collective is such a powerful group to belong to, because it helps you to work with the neuroscience principles that I'm sharing with you, while at the same time giving you actual tools to work with your energy in your business. So what is the problem with not doing these activities, with not stretching and warming up before you get visible? Here's what happens when we ignore the signals that our body is giving us. I talked about ignoring what was happening in your diary and overriding that and not having a boundary because someone had asked you for time. The trouble is, when we ignore our own natural energy cycles, when we don't stretch and warm up, what happens in sport? You have an injury, right? And the same thing ultimately happens if you're going to continue to override your own natural rhythms and your energy cycles and to work in a dysregulated state. What starts to happen is your energy starts to drop, your creativity bottoms out, you start to burn out, and then you start to hide. You start to disappear from your audience. You start to not be posting. You're less and less visible. And there's a little voice in your brain that starts to have stories about the fact that your business isn't going to work. Because, of course, the less visible you are, the less opportunity there is for you to touch other people's lives with your business. And so it feels as though your business is not working. And then what happens is, even after you've kind of hibernated and taken a break. I know a lot of people will take a so-called toxic social media break. And this results in an extended period of time being away from my audience. This does a couple of things to the audience. First of all, it interrupts their trust bond with us. Remember, trust in my audience is built over repetition. And if I'm not if I'm not consistently in front of my audience, if I'm here today, gone tomorrow, here today, then gone tomorrow again, it leads the audience to mistrust my constancy, my consistency. And whether we like it or not, they're going to translate that into, I wonder if this is how she behaves when she's delivering her service. So it's so critical to the long-term benefit of your business and to who your clients understand you to be, to maintain that constant rhythm. And the only way to do that is to prepare properly, to manage your nervous system in advance, to prepare yourself energetically, and then to have a content creation rhythm that works with that. The trouble with going dark every so often is that your brain remembers the stories. If you listen to any of my other videos, you'll hear me talk about how the brain is constantly looking for evidence to support its version of who we are. And when we are inconsistent and here today and not tomorrow, the brain starts to register a story that I am inconsistent. And social media is hard, or visibility is hard. And the last time I did this, I burned out. And the next time we want to come back into that, the brain's going to throw that story back at us. Yes, but do you remember how hard it was? Do you remember how burnt out we got? You hate this stuff. You're no good at this stuff. And so the biggest issue with not doing the prep work, not regulating first, not getting yourself into your natural zones for that, is the long-term downstream consequence that it's going to have on your business and on your ability to show up the next time. So staying visible without burning out is not about doing more. In fact, it's probably about doing less, because the more you align yourself, the more you regulate your nervous system, the more prepared you are, the less takes you've got to do on the reel, the less takes you've got to do on your YouTube channel. I have learned that through practice. And so the more that you do this, the less burnout you're going to feel. You are not behind. If you're sitting in the middle of burnout right now, know this, it's not the end of the world. You haven't done anything wrong. You've not broken it. All that you need to do is regulate your nervous system, stretch a little bit, prepare yourself, and then come back stronger. Subscribe to this channel for weekly input on any neuroscience related topic for building your business in a way that's brain friendly, neurosystem friendly. And don't forget to sign up for my free masterclass, the Freedom Success Formula, where I'm going to show you the exact formula that I've used to have success in my businesses over the last 17 years, and that I'm now teaching the women in the Freedom Collective so that they build businesses with abundance, freedom, and joy. Isn't that why you started your business in the first place? Because freedom is a head game.